stuff here is evidence of my ancestors. And I actually feel pretty special that I can touch it as well. This material here is actually from our local pit or quarry, a traditional pit. You can tell that you know, these are actually pretty foreign. These have actually been carried here or traded here. I like touching these. Every time I do it, sort of this little unbidden thought comes into my head like, gee, I wonder which grandpa touched that one. We find this sort of evidence everywhere out here. That's why I want to really have a chat to Rob.
This whole site that we're looking at here is it's actually a quartzite quarry. It's where people come and they make artefacts and they take them away. So often what you find at quarries are not the things that people go to quarries to make because of, you know, they take them away. But you're left with a kind of negative impression, like the fingerprint of what they came to take. So, but the whole area is littered with artefacts because to make one artefact that you want, you generally make 200 to 300 bits and pieces that kind of fly off everywhere. So what I've done here, I've hit this core, and you can see the angle there is less than 90 degrees. So I've come down and I've tried to use a bit of the hammerstone that's got a sharp point on it, so it's directing the force straight through this rock. It's hit there and it's taken off these two flakes. So these are flakes and they've come off from the core. And on the core you can see the negative scars and you can see the point of impact. And on the flake you can see the platform where I struck it, and then behind that you can see this bulb, which is the bulb with percussion. And this is extremely sharp. And if you look at this, it'll just slice, you know, straight through anything. It'll go straight through leather, and you'll find it a couple of thousand years later and it'll be just as sharp. Now, when you find rocks with those features of them in an environment like this, the only way they can ever occur is for that rock to be hit with force at that particular angle, striking down. Now the likelihood of that occurring naturally anywhere is fairly minimal, but in an area like this we've probably got a couple of 100,000 artefacts, so the likelihood of it occurring a couple of 100,000 times in one spot is almost zero. People can direct the force through this core in various ways that make the flake go longer, shorter, wider, and you do that by simply hitting either further back or further forward, or using, say, a blunter part. If you use a blunt part of this to hit it with, it'll spread the force out and you'll end up with a big oval shape. And if you get something that's very sharp, very pointed, it'll come out as a long blade because it's directing the force down. But you can do other things, like if I was to bury this in the ground and put a fire around it, it would change the properties of this rock. So all this shattering that occurs would stop. It wouldn't happen because you've got to heat treat it for about 48 hours. And this is it's a beautiful core. It's had flakes struck off it all around, but often the core was used as a tool as well, you know, for heavy woodworking, that sort of thing. But these cores, because it's a quarry, they're littered all over the quarry, and a lot of these are discarded cores. But here, for example, you can see it's been struck there, and a large lalera blade has been removed from right there. Another one from there, and they've had a bit of a go around here, but you can see it's kind of, you know, it's a bit cruddy in places, so it hasn't worked, so they've moved it over. They've taken a big flake off there, another one off there. So people look at these rocks, and it's not just a matter of picking it up and going bang, bang. You know, you've got to get the angles right, and then you've got to have the right hammerstone as well, and know how to use the rock properly. And look, one of the easy ways to spot artefacts, if you don't know, I mean, bulbs, and it's just a nice noise. You know, you pick up two ordinary rocks, you know, and you know, like these, and just kind of go clunk, 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 clunk together. But you pick up, you know, lovely artefacts, and you know, hear that beautiful, like glass.
Yeah.
And there are films of Aboriginal people sitting at quarries, making that noise. You know, you can just hear it.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful noise because it just resonates throughout the whole land. It's called a blade because we define it as being twice as long as it is wide, but blades that are made of this particular material from Central Australia called Lalira blades, which you've probably heard about, and they were used in a lot of ceremonies, but one of the main functions was to use it as a trade item, as you were saying. And that's really where, you know, both, that's what I was saying, the scientific study of these quarries, we can work out what comes out of them, and the Aboriginal side joined together so beautifully because that's exactly what they're used for. These are really important trade items which spread from here right up to Darwin, right down to the Flinders Ranges, way across the Broome, you know, and into Queensland. So, you know, they form part of a huge exchange of pitchery and ochre and blades, and you know, and along with that is really what you talk about, and that's knowledge. You know, that's the main item that gets traded. The goods are only you know, a little bit of it.
And it's, for me, being able to say to people, look, we have evidence now that actually says that we were sharing technology and ideas 50,000 years ago, guys.
Yep.
And you know, maybe it's time to stop denigrating Aboriginal people.
Exactly right. It's the world's oldest internet connection, and that's really what it's about. You know, when we come to these quarries as archaeologists, we come with Aboriginal people to work together at them because, you know, I can do various measurements here and work out what people were taking away by measuring the scars on the cores and all the flaked material and what flakes have failed and which ones haven't failed. We can do all that, but in itself, that's really not, it's knowledge that's a bit shallow, and it's only when we combine it with the Aboriginal knowledge that it has a real meaning. People think with the land, you know, we tend to, people like me anyway, brought up to think it's something that you lock outside the door.
Yep. And you bend to your purposes, whereas our whole use is basically we just go with the flow and use it to,
you know, everything's relevant in our society. Everything is relevant. You know, the sun from sunset to sundown, and from, you know, when the stars come out to when they go down, everything's relevant over that period of time. You know?
Well, we had
plants, the animals, each other.
That really interesting discussion we had yesterday about time.
Yeah.
We don't consider time. We have nighttime, daytime. That's it.
Yeah.
And then the seasons, we don't have 4 distinct seasons. Our seasons are determined by what plants are available and what migratory animals are coming back to eat those plants. That's how you tell. It's not, we don't monitor time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I was saying, you know, as an archaeologist, I come and I think, oh, this is, you know, 10 or 5,000 years old, however old it is. But you come here and it's there. Yeah. You know, it's in the same time.
And it was been here.
And that's something I learned from you. You see, it's that's what I was saying, it's a two-way thing. And to kind of pick up the complexity and the beauty of these sites, you can't. And you really can't look at,
you can't look at them in isolation, can you?
No, you can't.
Got to do the whole human element as well.
That's right.
Yeah, humans made them.
Yeah, you know? That's right. So it's humanly made.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
Yeah.
I'm having a ball.
Yeah.
So I can
Site
use
size.
this
Yeah, yeah. So
to record anything I find out here that could have value.